Who knew that inviting your ex to a seance could bring up more than just old memories? The movie opens with a family sleeping in a peaceful suburban home. Suddenly, they are awakened at 3:15 a.m. by their daughter's scream. She is possessed by an unknown entity, demanding human sacrifice and warning that their home belongs to Diomedes. The terrified parents strike a bargain with Diomedes to save their daughter and protect their home. The dark presence leaves their daughter's body, and the family deals with the aftermath of the horror. Let's now take a peek into the life of Will, a hardworking guy who puts in long hours at a toothpaste company. His girlfriend Amy is feeling neglected and upset with him because he always seems to be too busy for her. In fact, he didn't even make it to her promotion party. Frustrated with the lack of attention, she decides to call it quits and breaks up with him. Feeling down and out, Will goes to look for a new place to live and ends up meeting Ken and his wife, who offer him their entire house. After some convincing, Will decides to take them up on their offer and moves in. But things start to get spooky when he sees a ghostly figure in the mirror after a workout session. To add to the weirdness, Amy unexpectedly drops by to deliver his toothpaste, which Will proceeds to store in his basement. It is the dead of the night, 3:15 a.m. A demonic voice calls out Will's name, declaring that he is the chosen sacrifice. He suddenly wakes up, hearing the door closing, and decides to investigate. As he makes his way to the basement, he hears some whispering. However, he realizes the sounds are coming from his headphones. He tries to listen carefully, but suddenly the dance music blasts, and he assumes it's just the creaky new pipes settling in. Weirdly, the mixer turns on its own. Will thinks the electricity must be faulty. He heads back to his room to try to get some sleep, but then he hears a loud thud and falls off his bed. Startled, he decides to sleep on the floor instead. However, just as he's about to drift off, someone grabs his throat, causing him to jolt awake in terror. Later, Will discovers a cake in the oven. He sees the words, "I will have your soul," written on it. After the cake fiasco, Will calls his friend Patrick for help. Patrick suggests involving the authorities, but Will objects, asking what he would say to the cops. He suspects Amy since she's the only one who knows he's there. However, Patrick reveals that Amy has dumped him, which upsets Will, and he asks his friend to leave. Later, when Will returns from grocery shopping, he's shocked to find that all the furniture is stacked and the drawers are wide open. That night, as he tries to sleep, he hears whispers taunting him, calling him worthless. When he closes the door, it immediately opens again, and he's startled to see a ghostly figure standing there in the doorway. As Will rushes downstairs to check, he finds no one there. Suddenly, his Walkman starts playing workout music, and he starts exercising along with the instructions. However, the instructor pushes him to exhaustion and tells him to go to the basement. Will falls down the stairs, and when he arrives, he discovers numerous cakes with the message, "Leave this house," written on them. The piano starts playing on its own, adding to his terror. Then, to his shock, Will comes face to face with a ghostly figure sitting on a chair. Another ghost warns him that Diomedes cannot possess his soul and commands him to leave and never come back. As he is about to depart, he notices the ghost donning his t-shirt with a smile on its face. He rushes over to Amy's apartment, but finds her with her new boyfriend Nick and leaves heartbroken. Upon returning to his new house, Will requests permission to stay from the ghosts, but one ghost indicates that he's not welcome. Nevertheless, Will insists on finding a solution, and the ghost vanishes. As he heads to his room, the ghost boy reappears and warns him to leave as he is not the intended sacrifice for Diomedes. Will demands to know why he cannot be the sacrifice in frustration. Will runs into Patrick and shares that he wants to leave town for a while as he's tired of demons telling him he's not enough. Misunderstanding him, Patrick assumes that Will is struggling with inner demons. Suddenly, a girl shows up, and Will suspects that Patrick has set him up. Patrick introduces her as Amy, and they all start talking. Will reveals that his new house is haunted and filled with ghosts, and the worst part is that they refuse to take his soul. To console him, Amy assures him that any ghost would be lucky to have his soul. She discloses that she used to cleanse houses of spirits and negative energies back in college. Will seizes the opportunity and asks for her help, saying that he needs a cleansing tonight because he's at his wit's end. As they arrive at Will's house, he informs Amy that the ghosts can start being a nuisance at any time, especially around 3:15 in the morning. Suddenly, Amy senses a presence emanating from the basement and queries if there is a little girl's room in the house. She requests sage and salt and proceeds to sprinkle salt in the room before beginning the cleansing ritual. Amy urges the spirits to leave the house and states that they are not welcome. Suddenly, a gust of wind blows, breaking the salt circle. Patrick speculates that a window must be open and sets out to close it. However, Amy interrupts, revealing that the house has a demon and that her ritual was for the ghosts. As she speaks, she starts choking and collapses. Will rushes to call Patrick but hears a tapping sound from a room where he discovers him jumping rope. He informs him about Amy's condition and implores him to help get her to the hospital. As it turns out, Patrick has become possessed by Diomedes, and bringing his friends here only makes them susceptible to possession too. Will dismisses Patrick's warning, calling him a nerd, but Diomedes reveals his fondness for nerds before darting off and slamming the door. Will heads to the basement and tries to reason with the possessed Patrick, reminding him of his responsibility. However, Diomedes refuses to release the lady from his grasp and insists on spending time with Will instead. In a fit of rage, Will attacks the demon but ends up with a broken arm. Diomedes begins to dig the floor, but just then, Amy arrives and exorcises him. Will is left with a broken arm, and Patrick offers to take him to the hospital and care for him. However, Will declines, acknowledging that it was Amy who saved them, and his broken arm is already healed. He decides against staying with Patrick. Will insists on remaining in the house to prevent demons from escaping and causing harm. Amy expresses concern, cautioning him about the dangers posed by the demon seeking a sacrifice for its evil plans. Will argues that the demon is uninterested in him, and he will be the only occupant of the house. Patrick proposes that they visit the hospital together, and he can decide what to do next. Later, Will returns from the hospital after getting his hand treated and finds Amy waiting for him at the house. She had been informed of his accident by Patrick. Amy asks to come inside, but Will is hesitant, citing the danger. Amy insists that they can relax inside, and Will eventually relents. That night, they reconcile their differences and make up. However, during their intimate moment, a shadow of a lady ghost is seen lurking outside the window. The next morning, Will tries to convince Amy that their house is haunted by ghosts and a demon, and he plans to stay and protect against any potential evil spirits. He asks her if she feels the same way, but she dismisses his claims. Suddenly, Amy's voice changes into a demonic tone, claiming that she never loved him and that she now belongs to Diomedes. Will banishes the demon from his ex-girlfriend, and Amy faints. As she regains consciousness, Diomedes mockingly remarks that it was the worst demon cleansing he has ever seen and departs. Tammy, a bystander, watches from outside the house with a smile. At night, Will talks to his boss on the phone while the possessed Amy is tied up on a chair. He tries to exorcise the demon by drawing symbols and throwing a crucifix at her, causing Diomedes to scream. As he pleads with HR not to fire him for mistakenly associating their toothpaste with Satan, Diomedes claims Amy's soul for sacrifice. The call is abruptly disconnected. The doorbell rings, and Patrick and Amy appear, seeing Amy tied up. Will explains that Diomedes possessed her soul and that Amy says the portal to hell opens at 3:15 a.m. when Diomedes will take Amy to hell forever. As they enter the room, Will and Patrick are shocked to find that Amy is missing from her seat. Suddenly, Ken and his family arrive, revealing that they were already aware of the situation. Tammy confesses that Will was originally meant to be the sacrifice, not their daughter, Grace. Despite the betrayal, Will forgives them and implores them to focus on saving Amy. However, Ken's priorities lie elsewhere. He wants someone to be sacrificed so that they can reclaim their home. Will stands firm, declaring that no one will be sacrificed tonight, but a ghost intervenes, dragging him into the basement. Meanwhile, Amy and Patrick contemplate performing a seance to sever the link between Diomedes and the spirits. They gather Ken and his family to help, but as they work, Will discovers Amy digging in the ground. Will makes a bold declaration, saying that if Amy is going to hell, then he's coming with her. Suddenly, Diomedes is halted, and the wind extinguishes the candles. Amy probes the spirits, and the planchette moves to yes, prompting a drawer to fly open, revealing the message, "Help me," etched inside. Amy realizes that the demons had possessed the spirits to commit their heinous deeds and implores them to reveal how to banish Diomedes so that they can find peace in the afterlife. The spirit reveals that Diomedes first possessed 2 girls in the house before taking over Grace, who later ran away. Will tries to intervene, but Diomedes snaps his arm and burns Amy with toothpaste in his hand. A recording on the tape instructs them to destroy the demon's objects. In search of these items, they stumble upon a cake made by Diomedes. Will attempts to reason with Amy, but Diomedes twists her head 360 degrees. As Will grasps her head, he confesses that he was afraid to go with her that night because he didn't feel good enough for her. After collapsing, Amy awakens seemingly normal. However, the possessed Grace appears before them, trailed by Patrick and Amy. Patrick discloses that Grace is now under Diomedes' control. Jake shares that he's digging a hole to hell, while Amy admits she's never seen anything like it. Diomedes shoves Amy aside, revealing that he has his sacrifice and they can no longer save Grace. As Diomedes bites Amy and prepares to attack others, they trap him and Patrick tosses toothpaste into the gateway, closing it. Although Amy tries to banish Diomedes into the cake he made, he wriggles free and jumps into the portal, dragging Amy with him. In response, Will impales the cake, prompting a green sticky liquid to ooze out. As time passes, Amy and Grace emerge from the portal unscathed, and Amy reveals that the spirits have finally found peace in the next realm. The Lady Spirit starts playing the piano, and Ken anxiously asks Amy to banish them from his house, but she refuses, claiming they are harmless. A year later, Will and Amy rekindle their romance, and Ken decides to sell the house to Will. Amy reminds everyone that Diomedes was never able to find a suitable vessel to escape the house. However, the movie ends on this haunting note. As they're about to leave, Will notices Grace's eerie smile fixed on him, leaving us all to wonder what fate has in store for him.